grew up.
And we are live.
And, oh, we are live. Okay, cool.
Well, good evening. I almost said good morning.
You did almost say good morning. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday, folks.
You know, it's pretty bad when I, answer phone calls, especially from coworkers, and I have to look at the clock to see, do I say good morning? Do I say good afternoon? You would think that.
You ever accidentally say happy birthday? Because I did that once.
No, I have never accidentally said happy birthday, but
I only got halfway through. Good morning. This is
So anyway, welcome to our live stream. Today, I'm here. I'm Sandy. And I am with Andrew.
Yes, you are. You are with Andrew. Hello.
And for those of you that don't know it, Andrew is our awesome worship leader. So
that's what I do.
And what I kind of like is that since Pastor Mike gives us his entire sermon notes, that includes the order of service, which includes all of the worship songs.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that says that we can't talk about worship.
That's true. That's true.
Just saying. Because the topic is, the actual topic is pattern of service and rest.
Mm-hmm.
And they go hand in hand.
Yep.
And worship is not just the music, the singing. We should be worshiping in all that we do.
Yep.
But worshiping through music is one of the best ways to draw yourself closer to God.
Yep.
It breaks down barriers.
Yep.
So how did you get into worship?
I mean, grew up in church my entire life. Took piano lessons as a kid. Always knew that I wanted to get to guitar eventually. So after about 8 years of piano, I finally took matters into my own hands, and there was a guitar. I was in high school. My freshman year of high school. There was a guitar class at my high school. So I was like, okay, I'm taking that. I'm saving up and getting myself a guitar, and did that. As soon as I started playing guitar at all, I joined the youth group worship band at my church. Literally didn't know how to play. During rehearsal, I'd be looking at the chord sheets and I'd see a chord that I didn't recognize, and there was a chord chart backstage, and I would put the guitar down, run backstage to check and see, okay, well, how's that chord go again? Okay, great. Run back out, pick up the guitar, and keep playing the song. Didn't do that when it got to the actual youth group, but during rehearsals, I'd be doing that. And did that all 4 years at church, occasionally played our church's actual worship team. And then, all through college, played on the worship teams in my Christian groups. And there was maybe, what would that have been, about 8 months of my life between graduating college and starting to attend Monaz regularly, where I was not playing on a worship team. And it's been basically since ever since I was 14, I've been doing it. So,
well, this is actually, I just realized this is kind of sad because I have worked with you because I'm on the tech team.
Mm-hmm.
You've been in the worship team, and now you're the worship leader. For how long we have worked together, I have never taken the time to ask you how you got into this.
Well, I always forget. I don't think about it very often because it's what it was when I started is totally different from what it is now. I mean, anytime any different group of people you play with, and the different roles you occupy, it feels like a completely different thing. So it doesn't feel like I've been doing the same thing for for however many years that is, 16 years, even though realistically I've been doing worship for that period of time and learning more about worship. But it's felt, it's I've occupied a different role. When I was in high school, I was just the guitarist and occasional bassist, and that was, when I was in college, I started taking on more of a creative role of this is how arrangements should go, and I think we should play this song and not that song because of this, that, and the other reason, and yeah, with each sort of progression, my responsibility has increased, and it's felt like a different role. So I don't even think about that very often, to be honest.
Well, I have really been impressed with the growth that I have seen in you since you have taken over as worship leader.
Thanks.
And it's a cool thing to see, and what I've seen is that not only have you improved as, in what you are actually doing, but you are learning, where your, limitations are vocally wise, and because of that, you make sure that if it's a song that is not in your range, that you make sure that there's somebody else that can lead it.
Yep.
And that is huge because a lot of people, I'm not going to mention my name yet, but there's a lot of people, when you get in your own little niche, you think it's mine. I can't help but think of Gollum and the Ring.
Yeah.
My precious, I want to keep it to myself.
Yep.
Because I'll admit, I have that problem up there in, when I'm on the computer. It's like, it's my computer. I do it,
Yep.
And I've had to learn to relinquish and to train, and I've always had the type of attitude is, well, it's just easier for me to do it myself.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I actually do this. I get very possessive of projects because it feels like the effort it would take to delegate and tell someone else to do would be, it's not actually true, but it feels like that would be actually more work than doing it myself. And it's not the case, but it's a lie that springs up and it gets perpetuated.
and people are thinking, okay, what does that have to do with rest and service? Well, obviously, the service part is obvious,
Yep.
Because we both are serving.
Yep.
You're on the stage. I'm usually up in the booth. But where you succeed at better than I do is the rest portion of it, because I have a tendency to not. And, I felt very convicted a couple times during Pastor Mike's last couple sermons, because he's saying, if you start looking at other people and thinking that they're not serving and getting upset about it, maybe that's because you are serving too much and haven't had the time to rest and get into the right attitude.
It's that Martha thing. Why isn't Mary helping me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, no, that's no. Yeah. So, but it's, there's a balance, and each person has to find their own balance.
Yep.
And we as fellow servants, because the whole church body are servants,
Yep.
We need to unite in service. But each of us have different abilities. We have different time limitations. We have different strengths, different weaknesses. So we have to find that balance individually, and we can't look at someone and think, well, I'm better than they are because I'm serving for 16 hours a week and they're only serving for 14 hours a week. But we don't know what else they're doing.
Yeah.
And we have to be very, very careful. Now, if we know that somebody is not serving at all, then yes, we should in love encourage them, to find a niche somewhere. And by the way, we are always taking people on the tech team. Feel free to get a hold of
Yes.
one of us.
Yes.
Um,
Especially if you just want to run ProPresenter, click through slides. That's what we need the most because Sandy has no backups right now. So
I'm about to. Braden Fanning
oh, fun.
has expressed extreme interest, and that's kind of like a no-brainer because she's done it before. So it's
Yeah.
going to be a case of just showing her the few changes, and then I'll just sit back and
Yeah, totally.
let her run with it. So she's
That's news to me, but that's exciting to
yeah
hear.
she's anxious to get involved.
awesome.
So I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
She just got moved back into town, and she really wants to get active again.
Yep.
So that's huge. So
Yeah.
we're excited about that.
Definitely.
But yeah. So anyway, I was doing some research on rest and looking up for some additional scriptures, and I was not finding it very restful as I was looking for scriptures to be prepared for
Yep.
tonight, because usually on Sunday evenings, I take the video from the sermon and I cut it down for for what we post
Yeah.
on our website.
Yep.
Well, we had other things going on Sunday evening, so I deliberately didn't. I thought, okay, I'm going to take a little bit of rest.
Yep.
And so I got up, and Monday morning I thought, okay, I can start working on it. And I turned my computer on. And it said something that there's a problem with your CPU fan.
Oh.
And I go, oh, darn.
Yeah.
So to make a long story short, we had an old Mac that we thought we were going to be able to use in here,
Yep.
but it was too old to run OBS.
Yep.
So I borrowed it, got it home, got it hooked up. Now now it's a Mac, and I'm using a PC mouse, a PC keyboard
Yep.
on the Mac computer,
Yep.
bouncing back between that and my work computer, which is a PC.
Yep.
So that's not.
Having to sort of make that
Yeah.
the OS
And-
translation.
And so I thought, okay, luckily I had downloaded a bunch of the files off of my computer because it had been making noises for a while.
Yep.
So I was able to, I had the files that I needed to do the video. So I thought, okay, now I don't have my video program on this computer, but I have been told that, iMovie works really good on Macs.
Yep.
So I didn't find it on the computer itself. So I went to the apps and I found it, and there was this little pop-up. As of 4/10/2024, this app will not work on these models of computers. So I thought, okay, darn. So I also do a lot of work in Canva.
Yep.
And I have a subscription to that. So I logged into my Canva account and got the same message. It won't even run Canva. Now, I can use Canva through the desktop.
Yep.
But every time I do anything in Canva, the little, it says, go to the, Canva app, and then in small prints, or stay on the browser. So every time I have to go to that little print.
Yep.
But we got it done. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to take the time. I've got everything done that I need to do.
Yep.
I got my work done for the day. I'm going to find scriptures.
Mhm.
So I found some scriptures battling the computer. And then I realized I don't have anything loaded onto this thing as far as a Word or a text doc,
So you couldn't even write it down. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So it was like, okay. So I went into my email, found a Word document, opened it up, wiped it out, copied and pasted it. So that's how my day gone. It's been very, very, very restful.
Yeah, sounds like it.
But as I was going through these scriptures, it was like God was saying, "Yeah, you may be having computer issues, but we've got it covered.
Mhm.
You're getting everything done you need to get done. Stop stressing. Breathe. Stop stressing. Breathe." So that's kind of what I did basically to prepare tonight was find a computer and print out some scriptures.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk about, how each of us deal with the rest and what type of rest,
Mhm.
we do. But let me hit a couple of these scriptures first. First one's from Matthew 11:28 through 30. "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." This was the first scripture to pop up when I did a search. God was probably up there chuckling, saying,
Yeah.
You didn't have to stress. I had it covered all the time.
Yeah.
So, and then it printed on two sides, so I'm not even sure where I am with these.
Yeah.
But that's okay. One of the ones that basically puts everything into perspective is, Psalm 23.
Yeah.
And most of us know that one. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing.
Yep.
He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley, through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and thy staff, they comfort me.
Mhm.
If we don't take the time to rest, then we can't receive the gifts that
Yep.
he's giving us.
Yep.
It just doesn't work too well.
Yeah.
So I know that you and Sedona, and I know this because Sedona is in my discipleship group, and we talk about this all the time, and she is always after me saying, you could just say no.
Yeah. Yep.
In fact, is a lot of times now when she calls me, from the church office to say, to see if there's something that she'd like me to help with, she goes, "Now remember, you can say no."
Yep.
But, and she'll do that before I even ask,
Yep.
or she asks me. But
Yep.
so, how do you and Sedona handle rest or Sabbath or, whatever you want to call it? Because it's not so much of taking a specific day and not doing anything.
Mhm.
Even though, in the Old Testament, they were saying, work 6 days and that seventh day you will rest.
Yep.
But when Christ came, he came to fulfill the law.
Mhm.
So we still need to follow his instructions by getting rest, but that doesn't mean that it has to be at a certain time on a certain day doing a certain thing or
Yep.
not doing a certain thing. So how do you guys deal with rest and being overworked?
Yeah. So, in terms of just weekly rhythms, we try to make Sabbath Friday evening through Friday evening until Saturday evening. The reason we do that is because we have friends all over Clackamas and Washington counties and who we like to see occasionally, and so very often on Saturday night we'll have arranged to hang out with them or stay in touch or whatever, some sort of social activity inevitably on a Saturday night will present itself. And of course Sunday, where we both work here, so we're we're running around doing stuff. And so after church Sunday, it tends to kind of be a chore time. So yeah, so that's kind of the range that we try to hit for Sabbath is to start Friday evening and continue until whatever activity we're doing Saturday evening. How that used to be, because I didn't have, so this is honestly more me than Sedona. I didn't have a whole lot of structure around how I was using my time that I was Sabbathing. So I might read some Bible or whatever, but for the most part, it was more I would be working all week, and by the time Sabbath rolled around, I'd be so dead that I'd just flop and sort of be a useless potato person for the entire period that I was supposed to be Sabbathing. So there wasn't necessarily anything really truly rejuvenating or beneficial about that time. It was just getting back to equilibrium so that I could go and kill myself again the next week. I started thinking about, and I've never been a person who has to push themselves really hard to work, but I've also never been a person who finds it difficult to stop and do some sort of leisure activity. I've always assumed a Bible story like the story of Mary and Martha wasn't really for me. And the thing that sort of changed the way I Sabbath was I was reading that once just to, I never figured it that I look at Martha and I go, that's a type A person and that's not me and blah, blah, blah. And I just assume it's not applicable. And I was reading the story, and what I realized was that in this story where Mary's sitting at the feet of Jesus and Martha's going around and working and cooking for all of the people who are following Jesus who've entered her house. And I realized that she was. It wasn't that she wasn't serving Jesus. She was serving. It mentions it that she was waiting on him and on the other people who were there. So it wasn't that she was ignoring Jesus or refusing to participate. That was in an act of service to Jesus specifically that she was doing it, and Jesus didn't necessarily chastise her for it either. He just said to her, that Mary has chosen what is better. And what I kind of realized is that for Martha, the way she knew to engage with Jesus was to be doing acts of service and to be leaning into that, and that was her way of relating to Jesus. And I realized that was me, that I wasn't using my times of rest to engage with my Creator. I was using my times of rest to recover, to head back into everything. And not everything that I was doing busy wise was all church service. Of course, I have a day job, and there's other people who I want to socialize with, or who need something from me, or who I need, so there was a lot that was a part of that. But what I realized was that I was kind of assuming, because I was leading worship team and all that stuff, that I was kind of letting that be my relationship with Jesus. And as a consequence, Jesus was becoming a job to me. Jesus was becoming the only time I spent engaging with him were times that I was in charge of things, frankly. So I was spending all of my time with Jesus administering, and there was no semblance of when that was how I was spending my time, there wasn't any semblance of a relationship with him. It was just my entire life as a Christian was about um, service, and I didn't really know anymore what is God's significance to me and what is my significance to Him, other than someone who does these things, who leads worship on Sunday. God is a part of my life in more ways than that, and I need to be able to stop and slow down long enough to recognize those. And because if I don't, what am I praising Him for? You know, I'm praising Him because I know on a fact level he deserves praise, not because, which is good. There's a duty aspect to praising God, certainly, and that's part of it. But we also praise God because He is good. We praise God because of what He is to us. And if I wasn't living life with God in mind in other ways than serving, then I was missing out on a deeper significance to praise. And so I started doing things with Sabbath differently, where my Bible time wasn't always, I was more diligent with my Bible time, but I was also less regimented with it, where I wouldn't necessarily stick to a reading plan and let me be the one with the steering wheel. You know, it's like I don't want to sit down with God and say, okay, you're the creator of the universe, but I'm going to pick the topic of discussion. You know, I want to be open to the possibility occasionally that He might have something to tell me through His word that I'm not searching for necessarily. And that can happen through a regimented reading plan, but it can also happen outside of it. And so, yeah, I also tried to, my first year leading worship, I didn't, there were some leadership skills I probably hadn't developed quite yet. I'd been in charge of things before, but this was a different kind of leadership that I was taking
Well,
on.
there's a difference between being in charge of things and being in charge of a group.
Yeah. And so I was struggling with that, and I was struggling with some delegation things, and I didn't have good systems in place, and so, but as time's worn on, I've figured out how to lean on you, and lean on Tim Friesen, and lean on DJ, and lean on Sedona, and everyone else on the worship team. I've learned that I need to delegate, or first of all, we're less united as a team, because it's more of my effort, like and everyone else is just playing in the band, and two, because that's not healthy, and everyone is capable and wants to be involved and wants to help, and so that's something I learned. And once I had more space during my week, because I'd delegated a little bit, that meant that when Sabbath rolled around, I wasn't just couch potatoing. I was able to spend my resting time productively. I was able to spend it in doing things. I was able to rest by doing things that I enjoyed, and that make me feel rejuvenated, whether that was sinking myself into hobbies, or going hiking, or that was all stuff like what Pastor Mike talked about. Was it this Sunday, or I don't remember if it was part of this sermon or the Sunday before, when he talked about going for a horse ride and leaving his mules, even though his mules could use exercise, because that would make it work. It would make it
Mhm.
a job, and he wouldn't be as free to just enjoy the horse ride. That was the kind of thing that I was more able to do once I made it so that my week was better balanced between service and rest. So,
Well, I have, you know, when I became a Christian, I knew that it was not just, it was not a religion. It was not, you know, just acknowledging that God was God,
yeah.
that it was a relationship,
hmm
with Him. And I've had that head knowledge,
hmm
you know, for years.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't until I got into a discipleship group that the relationship aspect started to click in, because it was no longer just, you know, my relationship, with him. It was, there was this group of us that were all growing in that relationship
hmm
together, in different degrees, different rates, and we were all at, in different walks of our growth with him,
hmm
but we were all on a journey together. And that wasn't until then that I really started to put it into perspective for me.
Yep.
Because it was no longer just about me. It was about we, God, myself, and the church body. And when we get to that point, it makes it easier for service to come more natural, because we no longer have the thought of, well, I've accepted Christ as my Savior and I go to church on Sunday, so I'm good.
hmm
We have to get involved, and and there's got to be that balance of service
Yep.
and rest.
Yep.
Because for those of us that do serve a lot, we could use some more rest. So some more
Yeah.
help would be nice.
Yeah.
And I've, also been on the opposite end of things. There have been, times in my life where I have not been serving actively, and during those times, looking back, when I was going through those times, I thought everything was fine.
Yep.
But looking back, there was no growth. I can see that there was a big gaping hole in my walk.
hmm
And, it was like you're trying to ride a 3-wheel bike that only has 2 wheels, and you're just kind of wobbling along. And so it's important that we rest. I know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to learn. Sunday afternoons, I like my Sunday afternoon nap.
Yep.
But you're right. It's more than just, yes, we need time to physically rest
Yep.
and recuperate. And believe me, the older you get, the more you need that. You're still a young whippersnapper.
Yeah. My recovery time is a little shorter. It's getting longer every day though.
But we need to take that time to rest and regroup with Christ, but also with our family.
Yep.
And that is something that I have not been good at. I have a tendency to take my family for granted.
Yeah.
And I apologize, dear. Brian's back there behind the.
I totally relate to
behind
that
the wall,
because it's easy to forget that just because they're still going to be there tomorrow doesn't mean that that's not still something that's needs to be cultivated.
Mm-hmm.
It's yeah, marriages and family relationships don't just sort of exist in stasis. They yeah, they need work as you know, and friendships do as well. All
They do.
relationships need input in order to
'Cause
have output.
if we don't work at a relationship, it's not going to grow.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yep.
know, and I don't care how long you've been married.
Mm-hmm.
You need to work at that marriage.
Yep.
And there's been a lot of times that I have allowed myself to get, you know, not just physically, you know, exhausted, but mentally exhausted. And when that happens, I am not the biggest victim of that. Usually,
Mhm.
the biggest victim of that is Brian because he has to put up with me when I get to that point because he will ask a logical, innocent question, and I don't always reply appropriately. You know?
Sometimes when I'm wore out, I can take questions as rather than like looking for information, I can view it as looking for something else for me to do, looking for something I should have done but haven't. Looking, I can, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I tend to take it as a criticism.
And I do that a lot too. And if you don't believe me, just ask Brian because he's going to nod on this one because, you know, all, you know, because working from home can be a challenge because it's not like when I was going to work, I would go to work, I'd work, I'd leave work, and
Yep.
work would stay at work. But now, since work is at home, I never leave work.
Yeah. Yep.
And yeah, it follows me wherever
Yep.
I go.
Yep.
But you know, I will set work aside, you know, and I'll come out and I'll sit down and Brian will, and very nicely he will say, you know, when do we get a chance? We need to, you know, do X, Y, Z. And
Mhm.
he's not telling me, okay, don't sit down, get up and go do, you know, this,
Yep.
this, and this. He is, and a lot of times it's things that I have asked him to remind me about.
Yep.
But I get to the point that because I have failed to rest, you know, both physically, emotionally, spiritually, that when he says those reminders, I take them as fine, I'll just get up and go do it now.
Yeah. Yep. I do
And-
the same thing.
and, You know, that is not fair to him
Mhm.
because it's not what he's asking. And then he gets on the defensive because I'm basically attacking him for no reason.
Yep. Yep.
So, well, I'm glad I'm not the only one that
Nope.
has done that.
You
See, dear,
most
you know.
certainly are not. Where's Sedona? I don't know when she said I may need that on a shirt. I think that was a while ago, but yeah.
Hey, maybe that's what we make some those Monez, don't be a couch potato.
Oh yeah, yep,
You
yep.
know, serve, don't be a couch potato.
Yeah, exactly.
that.
Well, it's yeah. I mean, and that's kind of where the balance comes in. Is it's like when you talked about the relationship aspect becoming more than just factual knowledge when
Mhm.
you were part of a discipleship. I mean, being a part of a community is an essential aspect of being a Christian. You can't really be a Christian in a vacuum. And then, you know, to be a part of a community that's doing things, that's holding
Mhm.
VBSs, that's doing childcare, that's having a worship service every Sunday, you know, that's active and has events and stuff. That it's difficult to be really a part of that community if you're not actually participating in those things. So that's where just one of the reasons why service is is important and is part of a, you know, part of
Mhm.
a person's life as a Christian, being involved in their
And
church community in that
we don't
way.
have the social interaction that we used to, you know, especially, before COVID.
Yep.
You know, I mean, we would do, potlucks, every so
Yep.
often, um and it's not just our church. I see it, in churches, I see it in other venues, even in the workplace.
Yeah.
You don't socialize
Yeah.
with your coworkers like you used to.
Socializing at church with someone that you've never served with at some point is totally different from
Hmm.
serving with someone that you've served with. Because just like anyone else who's been in the trenches with you on something, they're going to have seen you do things and say things and mess things up and do
Hmm.
things well that other people haven't. And so your relationship with those people is going to be totally different. It's going to be closer than with the people that you've never served with. And that service is something that unites people within a church. And
It
it's
is, and we need the only way we can keep the body united is to get to know each other
Yep.
better.
Yep.
And if you're not serving, you know, some people may think, okay, yeah, I want to serve in, I know I'm good at, this or that or something else, and so I would be interested in doing something like that.
Hmm.
But a lot of people have no idea. It's like, okay, I know I should do something, but I don't know if I'm good enough for anything, and I don't know
Yep.
what I can do because, that person can do that thing better than I can do, and that person can do something else better than I can do, and God will equip us for whatever it is that He has us doing. Um, and sometimes the most important things are, a good example is the helpers in the nursery that
Hmm.
are down there just to hold babies.
Yep. Yep.
Um, Not everybody, you think, well, that's easy. Well,
Hmm.
it may sound easy, but not everybody can do that.
Hmm.
But your service doesn't have to be something that is physically difficult, depending on, I mean, hey, if you've got the physical ability to, help clean the gutters, hey, we'll take it,
Yep.
But, if not, there's a lot that you can do.
Yep.
Um, but just remember that we've got to balance,
Yep.
the the rest. And I really like the fact that, you pointed out that it's not just being a couch potato,
Hmm.
because I too sometimes, get to the point that it's like, okay, I'm just going to take the day off and do nothing. And it's like, we'll turn on the television and
Yep.
we just go brain dead,
Hmm.
you know.
Yep.
Um, Depending on, sometimes there's some really cool history programs,
Yep.
about, uh, we've been watching one about, walk where Jesus walked, and, you know, that, I find those very, very refreshing. But sometimes I'm just brain dead,
Yep.
you know. Uh, but we need to find that balance. So
Yep.
so how are the comments coming? I've been ignoring them. So anything of interest? Um,
Yeah.
well, but Miss Jean, it is so good when you are here. We are just so happy to see you.
Yeah.
So remember,
Amen.
you still are one of our prayer warriors, and you still give great hugs.
Yep.
And giving hugs is important.
Yep.
You know, um, I'm going to glance through some of these other scriptures. Now that they've got them all messed up. That's what I get for not labeling them. But that's okay. Exodus 31, 12 through 17 is talking about the Sabbath. And this was obviously in the Old Testament where this was before Christ, so they had to follow the law.
Yep.
And luckily for us, Jesus has been here to fulfill the law, and so now we have that direct relationship so that some of this stuff we can be more flexible on as far as, how and when we observe the Sabbath. But it's, the Lord said to Moses, "Say to the Israelites, you must observe the Sabbaths. This will be a sign between me and you for the generations to come, so you may know that I am the Lord who makes you holy. Observe the Sabbath, because it is holy to you. Anyone who desecrates it is to be put to death. Those who do any work on that day must be cut off from their people. For 6 days work is to be done, but the seventh day is a day of Sabbath rest, holy to the Lord. Whoever does any work on the Sabbath day is to be put to death. The Israelites are to observe the Sabbath, celebrating it for the generations to come as a lasting covenant. It will be a sign between me and the Israelites forever. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth." And then he rested. If you read it, just think, oh, if I work on the Sabbath, I'm going to be put to death. Well, the way this applies to us is a little bit different because Christ has been here. He has fulfilled the law.
Yep.
However, there is physical death, but then there's spiritual death.
Yep.
And if we don't keep the Sabbath in whatever form that works for us, then we are losing that relationship with Christ. And that is a spiritual death.
Yep.
Spiritual death. So in some ways, even though this is the Old Testament, it still applies because it's talking about the relationship.
Yep. Well, even when I think the I don't remember which of the four gospels it was in, and it may have been in multiple. But the story where there was a guy, when Jesus heals on the Sabbath, and the Pharisees try to come after him for that, and he says, "So who, when their donkey falls into a ditch on the Sabbath, doesn't immediately go try to rectify that situation?" It's sort of demonstrating that there's there is grace surrounding the Sabbath, but I think it's the way it's talked about in Exodus and in Leviticus demonstrates to us more than anything that it's really important to God, that he means business when he talks about keeping the Sabbath holy and yeah.
Well, as in the New Testament, Jesus was always saying, okay, we need to rest, and then we will go somewhere else.
Yep.
We need to rest.
Yep.
And what the, when he was talking, in Mark about, they'd gone to Peter's house and he'd healed Peter's mother-in-law, and then all the crowds came, and, then they came back, And Jesus says, okay, well, we need to go somewhere else now because I need to share this with more people.
Yeah.
So the disciples were having to learn that the message wasn't just for this small group.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know, Jesus was there. Yes, that group was important,
Mm-hmm.
and each group that he spoke to was important. But also important were the people that he hadn't reached,
Yep.
that he hadn't spoken to. They, you know, and those people are the ones that, you know, his disciples were sent out. And those are the people that we are sent out, you know, whether that be for us to go to, you know, a mission field, or if that means just knock on your neighbor's door.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And sometimes we are better about reaching out to people that are out versus those that are the closest in proximity to us.
Yep.
So, which is sad.
Yep.
It is sad.
Yep.
But so as you're picking out, you know, the worship music, you know,
Mm-hmm.
let's kind of bring it back to music since
Sure,
we
yeah.
started with music. How do you go about it?
A lot of it is logistical, depending on when, let's say, DJ needs to be downstairs for children's ministry for the last song, or I have these singers, but I don't have that singers, and these singers are used to singing the solo on this song, but these other singers aren't. A lot of it's like, what's a good set for the people who are who have scheduled for this week, and then beyond it, when I can, I don't always have the notes on what the sermon is going to be about. When I can, I like to try to make sure the set, and particularly the closing song, tie back to the theme of the sermon, and that kind of it varies greatly, because I can look at the verse that's being preached on and pick a song that I think is going to be good, and it winds up being that the sermon went in a different direction than I was anticipating based on what the verse was. Other times I don't know what the sermon is going to be at all, and I just pick a song at random for some of the logistical reasons, and it winds up being the perfect song.
Well,
for
I'll
that
admit
sermon,
there are some sermons that, you know, I'm surprised that paper airplanes haven't been flying through the air, because it's like I'll be following along the notes and it's like,
yeah,
where's he going with that? You know,
Yep.
so it's like, you know, there's been a couple times I've been tempted just to take his notes and fold them into paper airplanes and just fly him from the booth down into
this
the
is
sanctuary.
what you said you were
know?
going to talk
It's
about.
Yeah. Yeah, Pastor Todd was really bad about
Yeah,
that.
yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Well,
But-
I don't think in recent history, certainly since I've been here, I don't think Pastor Steve, Todd, or Mike have been stick to the notes pastors. I think all three of them are like, let's hop on the train, and whatever track it goes down, that's,
You definitely have to pay attention, you know, when you're running slides for him. It's like, no, wait a minute. No, that one's, where'd that go?
Yep.
But that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
So, but, you know, very seldom is there a song that feels out of place.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
very, very seldom. In
Yep.
fact, I really can't think of any.
Yeah. Now that's
know.
and that's another aspect of planning the services too, is thinking, like, because I know when I'm listening to Spotify or whatever, and I was just talking about Timothy B. Schmidt with from the Eagles with Brett. So let's say uh, uh, Can't Tell You Why by the Eagles has just finished. And I'm listening to that, and it's a nice, it's a smooth ending to the song. And then it goes from that into, I don't know. What's a song that's very like right from the beginning? Maybe, I don't know.
But I know what you're saying.
Yeah, like or let's say like it goes from that into Louie Louie, for example. Like that's not, those don't fit together. I've settled into a mood with one of those songs, and then I've immediately had to reshuffle for the next one because it's not taking me to the same
doesn't
place.
flow.
It doesn't
It does
flow.
flow, yeah.
And so that's another thought is this song going to feel jarring coming
Yeah,
after the one that came
because-
before it?
Because what you want is you want it to flow
Yep.
so that it leads people into worship so that they can get from point A to point B
Yeah.
in a straight line
Yeah.
versus
And
jumping all over.
and to clarify, point A is I just woke up. It's Sunday morning. I'm in the building. That's as much as I can bring
Yeah.
right now. And point B is I am engaged with what is happening in the building. I'm engaged with what God is doing here. I'm engaged with what He has to say to me through my pastor and through His Word. And I'm thinking about Him. I'm in the
Yeah.
building thinking about Him and directing praise to Him because my mind is focused on Him. That's the
Yeah.
And if you that's really what we're trying to do is get people to, because like we say, worship is not singing songs. Worship is giving your life to God.
Yes.
And if you so our goal is that God is praised
But it's to
through
prepare
music, but
hearts.
it's also to get people engaged so that their whole being, they're orienting their lives, at least for the hour and a half they're in church.
Yes.
They're orienting their lives around God. That's worship.
So,
And so that's another aspect of planting the sets.
well, we are about out of time.
Yep.
So, as far as announcements, if there is a Know Your Church class coming up, that is going to be on May 6th at 6:30. I'm not going to tell you which room that's going to be in because it'll probably depend on how many people show up where they have it.
Yep.
But if you're interested in doing that, get a hold of Sedona or Pastor Mike or
Sedona or Pastor Mike.
there you go. That pretty much covers it. If all else fails, get a hold of Pastor Mike or Sedona.
Sedona says, I'm going to need a playlist where you transition from I Can't Tell You Why to Louie Louie in the least amount of songs possible.
So, before we close, we have a special video that we are going to play because we want you to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And this is from one of our great fans. So,
Hi, I'm Daniel, Pastor Daniel's son. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.
that's just sweet.
Yeah.
It's like, and he did that. Pastor Daniel sent that to us, and
Yep.
he said, "Yeah, he watched the live stream with me, and that was his comment. That was unsolicited,
Yep.
So it's like I couldn't refrain. We had to do a Cooper
Yeah.
Graham. So, anyway, I didn't see any prayer requests come in. Did you? Brian says he didn't see any either. So,
Nope.
well, anyway, if there are, you can always call the church. You can go to the church website and put in your prayer requests there too. Would you be willing to close us in prayer tonight?
Absolutely, yeah. Dear Lord, thank you so much for these past two sermons in a row that we've got from Pastor Mike on this topic of rest balanced with service, and help us to not have help our identities to be found in you and not in all the things that we've managed to do for you. Help our intentions to be to draw close to you, whatever it takes, and help us to balance serving you and resting in you so that we can have the closest relationship with you and with our church communities possible, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Well, this has been a lot of fun tonight.
Yeah.
It really
It's a good
has.
time.
So, yeah. And next week, I honestly don't remember who's going to be here. I should, because I scheduled them.
I bet you I can find out if you just give me a second. It is.
It will be.
It will be. It's loading. It's still loading. The internet back here apparently is. It will be Mark Watt and Ken Mejia.
Oh, cool. So they will be here, and they will be discussing Pastor Steve Hamilton's
Yes.
sermon, because he will be a guest speaker this upcoming Sunday.
I'm excited for that. I've never met Steve Hamilton. I've
And
heard a lot about him.
So I know that my job during the sermon is going to be a lot easier. A lot easier. So, but that's okay.
Yep.
So anyway, thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you Sunday in church. And if you can't make it to church, join us online.
Yep.
And we'll be back here next Tuesday. So have a good evening.
Have a good Tuesday evening.
Okay, take care.
Bye.